Hey, why is the bottom feeder here? Leave the gift and go home. Upon seeing the groom's name, Michael, I had a bad feeling. However, it's possible to have the same name as someone else, and I wasn't here at his invitation. Even if the groom turned out to be that Michael who crossed my mind, I was determined to fulfill my role here. Congratulations on your wedding. You, a high school grad? I don't remember inviting you, but since you're here, you better pay up. Oh, or maybe you're too broke to. My bad. Now, get out of here. Being treated so rudely by Michael, I left the scene. I wonder if he realizes what's coming to him. My name is Lucas, 33 years old. That rude man, Michael, has been my classmate since middle school. During my middle school days, I led a very glamorous life. This was because my father's business was doing very well, and we were living a wealthy lifestyle. Growing up in a privileged environment, my mother had me try various extracurricular activities, and I excelled in both sports and academics. Not to toot my own horn, but I was quite popular with the girls. However, by the third year of middle school, that glamorous life came crashing down. My father's business went bankrupt. Due to stress and overwork, my father developed a hernia and couldn't work immediately, so my mother started working part-time to make ends meet. Due to bankruptcy, all valuable assets were confiscated, except for the luxury items purchased in my mother's name. Since those were not subject to confiscation, my mother sold them without hesitation. The amount we got was not even half of what we paid. When my mother came back from selling those items, she was disheartened. Everything depreciates in value from the moment of purchase. However, the money was enough to fund my high school education. Life changed drastically, but I focused on studying for high school entrance exams as planned. The year my father's company went bankrupt was a dark year in my third year of middle school. Michael cast the darkest shadow during those times. As soon as he learned I became poor, he started treating me with disdain. Hey! I heard your family went bankrupt. Normally, we hardly spoke, but suddenly he approached me with a know-it-all attitude. His smirking face exuded pleasure at my misfortune. Thinking it was a hassle, I tried to leave the scene quickly. Hey, at least respond. Don't run away. I'm going to keep checking on your poverty from now on. Thanks for that. Well, I'm off. Interacting with him was exhausting, so I quickly returned to my seat. From that day on, Michael would pick on me daily with condescending remarks. Classmates tried to warn Michael, but he only escalated, leading some to join in mocking me. Alright, it's time for the usual lunch check. What's Lucas having today? My lunchbox was subjected to daily humiliation. Oh. Surprisingly, you've got quite a few side dishes. And rice, too? How audacious. Poor people should just eat barley. These days, barley isn't that cheap either, depending on where you buy it. It can even be more expensive than rice. I had resolved not to react to his nonsense, but sometimes I couldn't help but retort. Wow! Poverty really makes you knowledgeable. We don't even look at prices when buying rice at our house. Classmates burst out laughing at Michael's words. Anyone checks the price of rice, normally. But engaging any further was too tiring. I decided to ignore these vulgar people. During breaks, I started staying outside the classroom. I began eating my lunch in the courtyard and on rainy days, under the eaves. After putting some distance between myself and Michael, a classmate approached me. David. He was a quiet boy who transferred to our school in the summer of our second year of middle school. When I was eating lunch alone in the courtyard, he came and sat next to me. You should fight back a little more, he suggested. Huh? Are you talking about Michael? David nodded quietly, his demeanor filled with a hint of anger. Perhaps he had also had some unpleasant experiences with Michael. Arguing with him just gives him more ammo to tease me. It's a waste of time and energy, so ignoring him is best. Yeah, I agree. But I hate to let it continue like this. It seemed he was less concerned for me than he was sharing his own troubles. You might not know this, Lucas, but when I first transferred, he targeted me. Since then, he's been harassing me behind the scenes. It stopped when he started focusing on you, though. I didn't realize that, David. I've seen Michael teasing others occasionally, but I'm sorry I didn't notice you were having a hard time. I had come to understand just what kind of person Michael was when we ended up in the same class in our second year of middle school. Indeed, since that time, he had been catching someone or other to make sarcastic remarks or to tease. However, because his comments were lighthearted, everyone took them as jokes. I kept my distance from those whose values didn't align with mine. Fortunately, during my prosperous times, it seemed like he avoided me. So I spent my second year of middle school peacefully without any interaction with Michael. That also meant I had no opportunity to know what he was up to behind the scenes. What kind of harassment did you suffer? You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, I offered. David gave me a gentle smile and started to share slowly. They hid my gym shoes and dirted my gym clothes. In secluded places, he would shower me with sarcasm too. That's terrible. It's unforgivable. He said that after reporting to a teacher, the harassment stopped, but the sarcastic comments continued. By the time we were in our third year of middle school, Michael's attention had shifted to me, and thankfully, the sarcastic comments towards David stopped. David had a weak constitution and had moved to our nature-rich town from the city for his health. His somewhat urban and intellectual air might have provoked Michael's jealousy. That man craves approval and has high pride. He always needs to be the center of attention and cannot stand not being superior to others. Back when I was wealthy, he probably didn't mess with me because he thought he couldn't compete. My family was well known and wealthy in the area, recognized by everyone. Although Michael is undoubtedly unpleasant, he seems to avoid battles he knows he can't win. If only he had kept that trait as an adult. I often heard him boasting about his girlfriend. It seems he was dating a girl a year younger than us. My girlfriend calls me every day, saying she wants to meet soon. Tough, isn't it? He also bragged about things like their matching rings and other lovey-dovey stuff. It's much better to hear him boast about his girlfriend than to be involved in any conflict. It doesn't make anyone unhappy. But there was a reason why Michael was persistently smitten. Apparently, his girlfriend had originally been dating another boy. This boy was Chris from our class, who was the captain of the baseball team and had excellent athletic skills. Chris also did well academically and was popular with girls, which probably irritated Michael. Unable to compete with Chris in studies or sports, Michael set his sights on Chris's girlfriend. It's unclear how he managed to attract her, but she broke up with Chris and started dating Michael. That was the background, and in front of Chris, Michael would loudly boast about his girlfriend. My interactions with him remained frequent, and although Chris occasionally became his target, ultimately, it always came back to me. Well, there are guys with absolutely no appeal to women. Lucas, you've never even held hands with a girl, have you? I had held hands with girls, but I didn't want to engage with him, so I kept quiet. Well, you know, money is important, right? Girls won't come near a poor guy with no prospects. After boasting to make sure Chris could hear, he would always follow up with a remark that put me down. There's no point in responding if it means just getting yelled at. Eventually, the group eating lunch in the courtyard grew to include me, David, Chris, and others. Michael's group held sway in the classroom, and other classmates adjusted to his tempo. Making it an uncomfortable place for us, there was no need to force ourselves to stay. While it was for unfortunate reasons, I felt happy to have found companions. Just endure it until high school. I'm going to S High because it has a strong baseball team. Is N High his first choice school? Michael was surprisingly decent at his studies and would occasionally brag about his grades. Ugh, 90 again? That's just careless mistakes. It would be hell if I don't get into N High. He would loudly talk about his scores and desired school, trying to garner attention from those around him. N High, huh? I'm also trying to get in there. What about you, David? Your grades are good, right? I'm feeling better physically, so I'm going back to New York. I'll apply to a private school in New York. Ultimately, I didn't change my high school choice because of Michael, nor did he give up on N High, and regrettably, we ended up at the same high school, continuing our unfortunate connection. David and Chris, who had been my pillars of support, ended up going their separate ways, leaving me to start a daunting high school life. However, since our high school was the top school in the district, no one bothered with Michael's petty bullying. And as Michael became more isolated in his attempts to engage with me, he eventually stayed away. Unfortunately, we ended up in the same class in our first year, but from the second year onwards. As the classes were divided into humanities and sciences, Michael in humanities and I in sciences. It seemed my high school life would finally be peaceful, and the 3 years were almost over. However, at the last sports festival of high school, an incident occurred. I was selected to represent my class in the interclass relay. We were consistently winning in practice. The class was pumped up, confident of winning. But on the day of the sports festival, after finishing morning homeroom and heading to the grounds, the shoes in my locker were tight when I tried them on. Upon closer inspection, the shoes were new and not mine. I had absent-mindedly put my feet into them. Perhaps someone had switched shoes by mistake. I couldn't wear someone else's shoes, and they were too small to fit anyway. Desperate, I had no choice but to go outside in my indoor shoes. I managed to get through the various events in my indoor shoes, with only the afternoon relay left. Since I was going to eat lunch in the classroom during the break, I borrowed slippers from the staff room. When I went to the entrance to prepare for the afternoon's events, my indoor shoes were gone from the locker. I chastised myself for being so careless. I should have been more cautious when my outdoor shoes were switched. If I had realized it was harassment, I could have brought my indoor shoes to the classroom. It was a naive mistake to assume it was just a mix-up. With only 10 minutes left until the relay assembly time, I went to the staff room, explained the situation to the teachers, and asked if I could borrow some shoes. Luckily, Mr. Parker from the soccer team helped me right away. A member of the soccer team, who wore the same shoe size as me, lent me his soccer shoes. I was able to participate in the relay, and my class won. While it turned out okay, it was a chilling experience for me. After school, a janitor found my shoes. Both my outdoor and indoor shoes had been thrown in the incinerator. It was later revealed that Michael had been the one who threw away my shoes. A school-wide inquiry by the teachers led to testimony that Michael had been seen disposing of the shoes. Reflecting on David's stories from middle school, I realized what an unchanging person he was, and I was astounded. Then a three-way meeting with me, the teacher, and Michael was held, and Michael was severely reprimanded before apologizing to me. It turned out that Michael had also arranged for the new shoes to be swapped in. Although Michael apologized verbally, he showed no signs of genuine remorse and remained defiant. "But I got you new shoes, didn't I? I thought you'd be in trouble without shoes, being poor and all. Shoes that don't fit are as good as having none at all. You could sell them for cash. Consider it a parting gift." The teacher scolded Michael again. I was speechless. Though the discussion leaned towards resolving the issue by having Michael compensate for both pairs of shoes, I declined the compensation and chose to sever ties with him under the agreement that we would not interact in the future. I never want to see his face again. The cost of replacing 2 pairs of shoes was honestly a painful expense. As usual, we were still poor. Due to his bankruptcy, my father's job search was fraught with difficulty. The types of jobs he could apply for were limited, and he kept returning to the unemployment office. Although my mother was promoted from part-time to full-time, which made our life a bit easier, the treatment costs for my father's hernia, along with my school fees, kept our expenses high. We were not living comfortably. I also worked part-time to help with the family finances. Just as we were barely managing day-to-day, another trial cruelly overwhelmed us. After a while, my mother fell ill and had to quit her job. I had been preparing to go to college with a scholarship, but that became impossible, and I had to give up further education to find a job. I heard through the grapevine that Michael had been accepted to a private university in New York. It shouldn't matter to me what happens to someone like him, but at that moment, I felt a bit jealous. It seems that a person's behavior doesn't necessarily determine their life outcomes. I felt the unfairness of my fate but decided to do the best with what I could. 15 years have passed since I graduated high school. During that time, things happened that completely changed my life. I took the civil service exam and got a job with the city. My studies for university must have paid off. With a stable income, I was able to provide for my parents, though modestly. Our life became easier, and my mother's health improved and she became cheerful. I decided not to let her return to work and had her take it easy for all the years she couldn't before. Thanks to my mother being at home and providing well-prepared meals, my father's demeanor brightened, and he felt healthier. His hernia has significantly improved, and he no longer has any trouble with daily activities. Getting a job allowed our family to finally find happiness and peace of mind. After joining the city office, I was assigned to the Community Promotion Division. My main role involved working with local associations. I helped with various events such as local festivals and bazaars. I also proposed plans to the associations, and I became very close with the locals. Interacting with a broad age range of people was stimulating and enjoyable. In our conversations, I often found hints for city governance. These insights allowed me to start new initiatives. For the elderly living alone, it was important to check on their well-being regularly, and we had community workers visit them. I also helped start numerous clubs for seniors to ensure they had enjoyable lives. On the other hand, I heard from the younger generation that participating in community association activities was challenging due to work commitments. In those cases, we asked for cooperation with association fee payments only and reconsidered the demanding tasks. For the most burdensome tasks, we resolved it by providing subsidies from the city and recruiting volunteers. For festivals and bazaars, we advertised on the city's website and through public relations. This approach attracted people from outside the associations, and the events were very successful. Working in community promotion was incredibly fulfilling for me. Then, in my 4th year of employment, an opportunity came. The president of the largest community association in the city, Harold, proposed something to me. "Lucas, thanks to you, it's been a lot of fun." Honestly, managing the community association was a hassle. It felt more like a burden. And I didn't even know how to quit. But with the city's cooperation, we've managed to maintain the association in a wonderful way without it becoming a burden. He gave me the highest praise imaginable. The conversation continued. "You'll probably be transferred to a different department next year. How about it? Why not leave the city office?" Oh, sorry, I'm just surprised by the sudden proposal. You have the qualities of a business owner. It's a waste to keep you as a city employee." While his words were flattering, there were things I could only do because I was at the city office. I want to continue devoting my efforts to serving the citizens in the future. After all, I have no plans or prospects for starting a business. Thank you for your kind words, but I really love working for the city. You can contribute to the city through my business and engage in social contribution on a broader scale. I want to recruit you to my company with the intention that you'll eventually take over my business," he proposed. What an incredible offer had just come my way. Harold is the president of the largest trading company in the area, and most of the city's distribution is under his company's umbrella. Thanks to him, local products are sold overseas, greatly contributing to the revitalization of local industries. Also, the availability of rare foreign products in our region is thanks to his company. After much deliberation, I decided to resign from the City Hall and join Harold's trading company. While my departure from the City Hall was regretted by my supervisors, colleagues, and members of the community associations, I knew that departmental rotations every 2 to 4 years would have kept me from continuing in community promotion anyway. By working with Harold, I could once again think and work for the development of the local people in the city. That was my motivation for changing jobs. Work at Harold's company was harder than I expected. The pace of work was completely different from what I had experienced before. There was no time to take a breath or sit back and think leisurely. I was overwhelmed with communication with various business partners, and I consulted Harold on more than 100 occasions. For the first few months, I was swamped with paperwork, phone calls, and other menial tasks, practically confined to the office. "Look up, Lucas. There's a client right here. Pay attention." Catherine, the office clerk, would remind me when I got too focused on the computer screen. After dealing with a client, she would give me a thorough lecture. "Look, our business depends on the producers. We need to respond to customers in a flash. You go to restaurants, right? What would you think if you entered and no one came to greet you? Would you feel like eating in a restaurant where no one even says hello even though they're standing right at the entrance? I'm sorry. I haven't really been to many restaurants because of my financial situation." Catherine's eyes widened in surprise, then she stared at me intently. I see. Maybe it's better if the young lady trains you. Suddenly, Catherine's eyes sparkled as she contacted someone she called the young lady. Then, she relayed an instruction from the young lady. The next day, I was to come to work in a suit. I mentioned to Catherine that I was already wearing one, only to be sharply corrected. Wear your best outfit. Really, you don't catch on quick, do you? Catherine laughed heartily and clapped me on the shoulder. This was how she rigorously trained me. The next day, when I arrived at the office, a stunningly beautiful woman, who looked like a celebrity, was standing outside the office. This woman was Harold's daughter, Marie, known as the young lady. Marie was 4 years older than me and worked in sales at Harold's company. I'm taking you to a French restaurant today. Your appearance is, well, much better than expected. You can do it when you try. Catherine exaggerates. I was worried what kind of mess would come. A mess? When I inadvertently asked her to clarify, she blushed and laughed, explaining it was a regional slang. Her mother was not from the area, but apparently, she occasionally slipped into dialect due to her grandparents' influence. Dressed elegantly in a classy dress and with well-coiffed hair, her belongings were luxurious yet not ostentatiously flashy. For a moment, I saw the image of my mother when she was younger. My outfit today had been chosen by my mother, and it turned out to be a great decision. Listen, if you want to provide top-notch service, you need to become a top-notch customer first. When you experience receiving good service, you naturally understand how to provide it when it's your turn. That's how you learn to offer detailed and thoughtful service. So that's what it was all about. I finally understood what Catherine had been saying. With this new understanding, Marie, whom I affectionately call the young lady, and I started going out often. We dined, watched plays, and enjoyed orchestras covering a variety of high-end experiences. Our outings were a lot of fun, and I was drawn to her elegant yet unpretentious personality. Marie also appreciated my serious and conscientious nature, and she told me so. Our mutual understanding deepened, and we began dating. A year later, Marie and I got married. Thanks to the training from Marie and Catherine, I quickly absorbed the work. By the time I married Marie, I was entrusted with significant responsibilities, such as negotiating with chambers of commerce nationwide as part of the sales department. As time passed, 15 years have flown by since I graduated from high school. I turned 33 this year. I received a wedding invitation from Mayor's cousin's daughter. Marie and I were invited, so we decided to attend together. When I saw the invitation, I couldn't believe my eyes and felt a shock. The groom, Michael Johnson. I had a bad feeling about that name. It couldn't be that Michael Johnson, could it? There could be others with the same name, and since it wasn't from the groom's side that we were invited, I just had to play my part. But I couldn't help feeling down as the wedding day approached. Marie and I checked in and relaxed in the welcome area. There, I ran into old friends like David and Chris, feeling the unexpected connections. Long time no see. Who would have thought we'd meet here? Right. The bride, Naomi, is actually a junior at my firm in New York. David works at a major law firm in New York and Naomi, Marie's cousin, works at the same place. Wow, that's some coincidence. But Lucas, you know, right? As I wondered what he meant, Chris came to greet us. Hey! Never thought I'd run into you here. But, well, maybe it's natural for our age. I thought Chris was just a guest, but it turns out he's part of the event staff. This venue is really nice, isn't it? The view is beautiful too. Let me get you a drink. Chris, holding 2 empty glasses, took our order and headed to the counter. That's when I heard a voice I recognized. It was the same tone that instantly brought back memories from 15 years ago. Hey, why is this loser here? Leave your gift and get out. It was no coincidence of names. It was him, that Michael Johnson. This must have been what David was about to say. Congratulations on your wedding. You, a high school grad, I don't remember inviting you. If you're here, pay up. Oh, can't afford it because you're poor? My bad. Now leave. Paying attention to such a childish, pitiful man is a waste of time, even at this age. Since it's such a special day, I want to keep things peaceful. I excused myself to Marie and stepped outside for some fresh air. But to think that Naomi's partner would be that Michael Johnson. If I had realized sooner, I honestly would have tried to stop it. Naomi has lived in New York since her student days, only returning home for New Year and summer vacation. In the past year or two, she was too busy even for New Year visits. Just when Naomi's name came up, it was about this marriage. Both families had met and her parents thought he was a good man. As I pondered outside, Chris brought over a drink, concerned. He's good at hiding his true nature. Kind, a good listener, and even cracks jokes. Women like that kind of attentive guy. Oh, sorry. She's your cousin now. Chris's words carried weight. Was there another side to Michael Johnson I didn't know about? Moreover, Michael Johnson is also a lawyer at a renowned firm in New York, a real highflyer. They plan to set up their own firm locally after getting married. Hearing this didn't make me envy him anymore. Over these 15 years, I've carved out my own life. By the way, they haven't registered their marriage yet. Apparently, they're going to sign the marriage certificate at the ceremony. Is that true? Yeah, I've seen the whole schedule. From Chris's smirk, I gathered a bit of insight. Maybe he intentionally leaked some information to me. It's about to start. Lucas, don't leave Marie alone. Urged by David, I hurried back to the ceremony hall and shared with him that Michael had not yet registered his marriage. In the welcome area, we saw off the bride and groom as they proceeded down the aisle for the ceremony. I positioned Marie and myself in a prominent spot in the front row with a basket of flowers. Today, many of Michael's old cronies are here, and it feels just like the hometown we all know too well. When we reunited in the welcome space, he was exactly like he used to be back then. Just like in middle school, he probably thinks everyone will laugh and enjoy his arrogant remarks. Moreover, only friends were in this space as the relatives were scheduled to arrive just in time for the ceremony. If Michael were to show his true colors, it would be now. Sure enough, the moment he stood on the aisle, he spotted me. Just as I expected, he revealed his true nature. Hey, Chris. Kick out that rat who snuck in. Unaware of how shameless his words were, like a big fish in a small pond. And you refer to whom as a rat? You're such a useless staff. It's him. That broke high school grad over there. Michael pointed and laughed, and his cronies joined in. Naomi frowned at the crude atmosphere. Everyone here has been invited because they are valued guests. So, I'm telling you, some uninvited trash has snuck in. His poverty stinks up the place, spoiling the ceremony, don't you think? His cronies laughed uproariously, while other guests were stunned, wondering if this was some sort of act. Hey, have you been talking about Lucas all this time? Huh? Was that his name? I can't remember the name of every rat. Although he spoke politely to Marie, the content was still that of a scoundrel. Well then, the rat family will take our leave. We've been told we're too poor for this affair. Michael showed a hint of panic at this unexpected turn. No, please stay, your family. You look lovely and definitely belong here. Since when did I become family? You mess. I knew Marie wouldn't stay quiet, and she didn't. Mess? It means a baby in her terms. She calls immature people that. Naomi's face looked like she might cry, her anger clearly showing as she seemed deep in thought. Just then, as the ceremony time approached, the relatives began to trickle in. The aisle, which should have been decorated with petals, was bare, and the bride and groom, who were supposed to be preparing, were still there. Everyone exchanged glances, murmuring about what was happening. Ah, my bad for being late, but we made it in time for the ceremony, right? Harold, who had rushed into the venue, sensed the tense atmosphere. As the bride and groom had not returned to the dressing room, both families came looking for them. Michael's mother demanded, "What's going on here?" It's because of this man. He was my classmate, and he snuck into the venue even though he wasn't invited. Back in school, he didn't think highly of me and often treated me harshly. I can't go into details here, but those times were tough. Michael suddenly changed his story. Hey, how can you lie like that? Everyone here saw what happened earlier. The guests all glanced towards Harold, but he was just watching how Marie was reacting. I don't know who you are, but it seems there's been a misunderstanding, so let me explain. Huh? We just talked with Marie, right? Even the bride was starting to distrust the groom as the families, including the parents, began to frown. Still, Michael continued to defend himself unabashedly. Lucas seems to have some long-standing issues with me. In fact, after we checked in, he threatened me right here, saying he'd ruin the ceremony. The murmurs grew louder, stirring the entire venue. But I will do anything to protect Naomi. We've significantly exceeded the scheduled time. I will sue him and claim damages. Guests who were unaware of the situation took Michael's words seriously and began applauding. Ha ha ha. Amazing. Way to go, groom, true to your reputation as a sharp lawyer. No, I'm flattered. May I address you as my sister? Like hell you can. Notice the sarcasm, will you? Harold moved closer to Marie and placed his hand on her shoulder. Marie, whatever you do is your responsibility, but remember the quality of your words reflects your character. Suddenly, Marie became as quiet as a mouse. It's time for me to speak up. Naomi, I'm really sorry that your celebration has turned into this. Naomi didn't think I was at fault. She shook her head sadly. I thanked Marie for standing up to Michael on my behalf and held her hand. I apologized to the guests for causing such a disturbance. Michael, your accusations are baseless, and if you want to sue, I accept. I have prepared a lawyer. And we will also sue for past grievances based on your earlier statements. Come on, you don't have the money for a lawyer. Do you know how much that costs? His facade of being a good boy in front of the relatives quickly peeled away. Lucas's suit is a special order from a prestigious tailor in New York. Who are you saying doesn't have money? Michael looked as if he had been shot. David stepped forward. If Lucas asks me, I'd be glad to represent him. I'm David from a major New York law firm. I have recorded the conversation around the reception area. The venue erupted into murmurs, and Michael looked defeated. As guests heard the name of David's law firm, they began murmuring among themselves. The fact that it's the same firm where Naomi works, and known as the largest in the country, added to the buzz. I wish she had married someone like David, some guests murmured. Michael's firm was smaller and less recognized than Naomi's. Snide remarks about a marriage of unequal status could be heard. And Michael stood there, pale-faced and stiff. I had married Marie as the prospective president, having been adopted into her family's business. Sorry, but this engagement is off. I cannot hand my precious niece over to a rat like him. Harold's decisive comment threw the venue into chaos. The quality of your words not only reflects on you but also on the person you direct them at. Harold said with a rage towards Michael not seen before. This Lucas here, I scouted him for our company because I saw his potential. He's been instrumental in our business booming over the last decade, even helping us survive the tough pandemic. I could retire and leave the company in his hands right now, but he's stubborn. He won't let me retire. Ha! As Harold introduced me, all eyes turned to me with respect. Michael's face turned even paler. Wait, the president of the Sawyer Group? This guy? No way. That's ridiculous. This guy was so poor. He wore indoor shoes as his outdoor shoes because. That was because you threw mine away. The more Michael spoke, the deeper the hole he dug for himself, and the venue grew increasingly noisy. Naomi finally burst into tears. Lucas is the husband of Marie, whom I invited. How self-centered can you get? It's always about you, isn't it? Naomi left Michael with a parting goodbye and went to the dressing room. We gave Michael his final send-off. Leave the rest to me, or rather, to the Sawyer Group. Why don't you just go home now? Michael, unable to accept the swift turn of events, was escorted out of the venue by his mother. Michael's father deeply apologized to everyone, who remained silent. Harold escorted Michael's father out of the venue, seeing him off politely. His father is actually a respectable man. Michael's father managed a town factory, known for its meticulous work and consistently profitable management. His mother was a serious person too, devotedly helping at the factory and raising 5 children on the side. Michael, the youngest of 5 siblings, was raised with quite a bit of freedom. However, being compared to his successful older brothers seemingly gave rise to his complexes. After the Michael family left the venue, the relatives started gossiping. Understanding this, it became clear that his past harassment was rooted in jealousy and bitterness. He was indeed a pitiful man. But that doesn't justify everything he did. Turns out he really was a baby, huh? Well, he talks enough that he'll probably climb back up on his own someday. Thank you, Marie. It's true that I provoked him a bit, making sure he noticed. I felt somewhat responsible, but Marie's positive words lifted my spirits. Marie has always been my rock. She blushed shyly and nestled her face against my shoulder. Despite the time, the reception hall was eerily quiet as no one had come. The table decorations and dishes glistened emptily. To salvage the chaotic situation, I made a suggestion. While we would return all the gifts, I asked that everyone stay for the reception. There was a surprise movie Marie made for Naomi, and it would be a waste to discard the food, so I hoped everyone could still enjoy the party. All right. From now on, this venue will be bought by the Sawyer Group. Let's all support Naomi's future together here. The guests unanimously agreed and, regaining their spirits, headed to the reception hall. Michael's relatives and cronies, feeling guilty, started to leave. But Harold stopped them, demanding, "If you feel sorry, then stay. You are all important guests." The day was ruined solely by the groom. Please, refresh yourselves and enjoy this together. Marie followed up with a kind smile, and ultimately, no one left. Except for Michael's family. In the dressing room, Naomi was surrounded by friends as she wept. "David, isn't he wonderful?" someone said, to which Naomi responded through tears. "I can't, I broke it off with him because I wanted to move back home, and now it's too late." What? Really? The guests were taken aback by her response. Sorry. I was also caught off guard and wasn't ready. I hesitated, and then he got there first. Probably sweet-talked her with promises of opening a firm together back home. Oh man. What a mess everyone's made. Despite everything, Michael's outward charm and sociability were undeniable. If only he didn't have such a petty jealousy. What a waste. Just as the reception was about to start. "Will you marry me?" David suddenly proposed. What? Now? David, can't you read the room? But what surprised everyone even more was Naomi's response. Thank you. I'm counting on you this time. Everyone was stunned, but if the parties involved were happy, they quickly shifted to celebration mode. The party turned into an engagement party on the spot. How are they going to handle the wedding? That's a separate event. David will probably invite his own guests and they'll do something different. Marie and I laughed at the wild turn of events, enjoying the party. Harold, thrilled by their engagement, drank enough to get thoroughly drunk. Initially awkward, Michael's guests gradually came to genuinely celebrate the couple. Days later, Michael apologized personally to each guest who attended the ceremony. Lucas. I admit I was childish. Got carried away thinking about marrying a beautiful and talented woman. But I've never liked you. That's nothing new. I'm going back to New York, but you better keep your guard up. With that cool demeanor, someone even more cunning might trip you up someday. In my line of work, I've seen plenty of those types. Michael was genuine with me, not just for appearances. Yet, his advice struck a chord. For now, I have Harold's backing, offering protection. But becoming president means being on the front line, in the firing line. As Michael said, it won't be easy to deny and evade issues like before. I still have a lot to learn and improve as a person. Michael's luck was evident in the fact that he hadn't invited any colleagues to the wedding. Planning to resign and return to his hometown after the marriage, Naomi also invited only very close friends. Fortunately for Michael, his blunder was unknown to his workplace or fellow lawyers, allowing him to slip back into his old life. On the other hand, it seems he became uncomfortable in his hometown, but thanks to Harold's interventions, the community no longer minded. Truly, he is a man blessed with luck. Maybe I should try living as boldly as him. Since then, Naomi and David have set up their firm locally. Seizing the opportunity, I decided to appoint David as the Sawyer Group's consulting lawyer. The two of them plan to have their wedding and reception next spring. Chris is said to be the planner in charge. Afterward, Chris also had a whirlwind marriage with a coworker. Happiness is spreading around me. Meanwhile, at our company, Marie has become the managing director, and I am preparing to take over as the executive vice president. We may face various encounters and conflicts ahead, and sometimes face unfair fates, but with Marie and my reliable friends, I'm confident we can overcome anything that comes our way.